Thank you, Hector. Thank you, Vishal. Welcome, everybody. Thanks again for being here. This is a very, I know, important topic for you right now and for us, for everyone. Basically, what you're seeing here is the agenda for the topics we're going to cover, which is this is the introduction, obviously. We're going to talk a little bit about pandemic and epidemic in terms of the definitions given by the proper authorities, health authorities. A little bit about coronavirus, traveling risk and monitoring, and obviously about the contingency plan in terms of pandemic, which is very specific. Let me put the next one here.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Well, what is pandemic? This is a topic that is very short in definition, but very huge in risk. So a pandemic is a worldwide spread of a new disease. Like this coronavirus, for example, is a disease that is covering a lot of countries, and right now is obviously near that definition. And of course, when a virus emerges like that and spread around the world, and most people don't have immunity, so the proper authorities said, I'm sorry for the presentation. She's I don't know, jumping the slides, but um, let me, what happened here is that right now the World Health Organization, which is WHO, um, the definition of pandemic is not readily public by them. Although the pandemic topic is like it's happening like the definition, which is worldwide right now. They're not defining a pandemic right now. They're just saying that it's a from high to very high risk what is happening in the world. So, in my opinion, really, based on the definition, it's like H1N1 in 2009, which was a pandemic disease running around the world, but they formally didn't pronounce it like that.
So Josue, okay, so Josue, basically, at this point in time, is the WHO, the World Organization, has not stated that. Give us a second. Let's run it like this, Josue, because I think
something is happening with the transitions.
Give us 1 second. We're doing an adjustment here on the PowerPoint. There.
Yeah, sorry for that.
There. Okay. So sorry, there was something going out of everything PowerPoint. Yeah. So not even a demo of a system. So basically, what's happened is the coronavirus has not been publicly categorized as a pandemic.
Yes.
It's still an epidemic, but under the definition of pandemic, it should have been categorized. So we're expecting at any second that the WHO come out and then finally move this into what is a pandemic. But right now, it's not a pandemic.
But the real thing is that it is spreading very fast in many countries, and we must prepare for that. We're going to talking about this. For this, and before entering in the other topics for the plan, the CDC, the Center for Disease and Control and Prevention in USA, for the travelers specifically, because the problem here is that because a lot of people is traveling around the world, they can carry the symptoms and all that, and and it's spreading everywhere. They put a web page. This is something that you can reach in the web with warnings, different alerts and warning levels for the traveling people that is traveling. For example, they have warning level 3, which is avoid non-essential traveling, which is important. This is something for monitoring. Alert 2, which is practice and enhanced precautions, which is all your normal precautions of hygiene, protection, and all that should be enhanced. and the practical usual precautions, which is smaller precautions or normal things that you do daily.
So, Josue, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So this is CDC. This is not the WHO.
No.
And let me see the Worldwide Health Organization. Every time I say WHO, Josue, I think about the rock group WHO. But anyway, so this is how the CDC in the U.S. categorizes it. Is the U.S. doing this by? Are they doing this by state, or are they doing it as a U.S. as a country as a whole?
The CDC covers everyone, so
it covers all of the U.S.
Yes, and if you look for information in the WHO, CDC, and all that, they are very aligned. Everyone is aligned for the topics.
Okay. So a quick question, Josue. Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago, they'll probably be using a similar methodology as CDC and WHO.
I really don't know, but maybe yes.
Yeah. So, and because the U.S. is maybe saying avoid non-essential travel, it doesn't mean that, let's say, Antigua and Barbuda are not recommending that, right? So it has to be monitored.
If you, I just put the webpage. If you hopefully everyone is seeing that page.
Michelle, do you see the webpage? I just want to make sure you're seeing the webpage over there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, all right. If you see that they have the 3 layers, the 3 risk layers, and they are covering the riskier or the more risky risk countries that is right now in terms of the coronavirus, which is COVID-19. This website, this site covers not only that, covers other diseases, which is a normal thing that they do, the CDC monitors, but right now they are putting in the top layer of the page the warning for not traveling or take precautions within those countries. If you see this website right now, non-essential travel, the recommendation on those countries, Italy, Iran, South Korea, and China, for the COVID. Second layer only covers one, which is Japan. And the third layer for the coronavirus is Hong Kong.
Okay.
So they are adding more things. They are, spreading more. Hopefully not, but they're spread.
So at this point in time, we're not seeing anything in Central America or Mexico.
Directly in that page, no.
Okay. So if I'm somebody sitting in the Caribbean, I'm somebody sitting in Central America, I'm concerned, and the U.S. is saying something and China another thing, it's always better to come to this webpage where you said, because that would be the more official site, because I know there's a lot of confusion, including myself.
This is something important that you mentioned, because there are a lot of social media and pages and YouTube and all that information you do that maybe is confused. You don't know really what is happening. So those are official sites, official entities that at least monitor in a more conscious way the topics.
And also because of the hysteria, I was reading, obviously, because in Optimus, we already have a contingency plan running because we travel so much and we have customers all over. One of the things I know that different people are doing, for example, Apple has been taking down a lot of new apps that say about statistics and everything else of unknown or not recognized sources. I know Amazon took down over 1,000 products that were advertising that would help with coronavirus, and they took them down in the last week. So I just want to let everybody know that don't trust everything that's out there.
Try official sources. If for example Apple, Microsoft, all that. Write about that in their web pages. At least they're providing more a conscious way of information. This is the most important part. Use the right information, the better we can, and to serve with the guidance. Another area for the COVID-19 for monitoring, the Johns Hopkins School of Engineering created for this specifically a website, which is a live website with all the statistics regarding the coronavirus. It's very important because it is official also. They link to the data that are provided for the official sources. So we found that during the process of preparing some of our clients, and it's very useful. I'm going to show you right now the website also, because I think it's very important for you.
So John Hopkins,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it because obviously
great.
I lived in the U.S. I know what's John Hopkins, but we have a lot of international people right here, right now, in this conference. Who's John Hopkins? Josue, they're
Yeah, in that case, they oh, let me show you.
yeah.
School
Yeah.
of Engineers just prepared that as a method for monitoring the coronavirus right now. So there's a section of science for an engineer that is helping with that methodology.
Okay.
To provide information.
So it's
free in the web.
So it's U.S. more than everything, and U.S. renowned or well-renowned educational and institution. They're independent of governments, and they're running these official statistics, right? So this is independent of any government.
During it's very interesting because during the process of some of our clients discussing this, we just found information in the official websites, the US, for example, and compare that, and they are aligned. So they're using the same data.
Okay,
we understand that. We understood that. So.
And also, I'm seeing some red dots in the Caribbean. I thought in the Caribbean we were.
Well, let me try to put this just to be sure that you can see.
Yeah, so that's St. Bart's.
That's St. Bart's.
So yeah, so only in the Caribbean, only Dominican Republic and St. Bart's have officially reported. St. Bart's, we all know that it's a very small island. I think has less than 10,000 people. It's really a French protectorate, and and they don't deal. I would personally be more concerned if it was at St. Kitts or at St. Lucia, where in the Caribbean and in Florida there's a lot more movement. That was possibly an Italian tourist in St. Bart's.
Maybe it's that. And remember that exactly. People is traveling a lot. People from main coronavirus centers, as I mentioned to someone yesterday. There are a lot of places that are high risk for the government or institutions right now, but people is traveling. So if someone is traveling with the virus, and it can spread it.
And I know that in Cayman and Jamaica got a lot of heat from the cruise ship companies because they turned back. I think it was MSC, which is Italian. Some Italian cruise ships, they didn't let them enter. And that was before Italy was officially put in that top category. So, sometimes we criticize our governments for being overly cautious, but definitely,
we must do that.
Yeah, I think Cayman and Jamaica did a pretty good move.
I know that economically is a hit. People in the economic place, the companies suffer. But the real thing is that if the people is ill, there is no business.
Yeah.
So I'm just showing that because the link is there and you can use it. You can monitor what is happening right now with that virus. Then before entering the more specifics for building a plan, we use guidance. I'm certified business continuity professional. We use the guidance of the Disaster Recovery Institute International, which is like a global best practice. They provide global best practice methodology for all the business continuity topics and disaster recovery. So we use those frameworks
and the methodology
to ensure.
And you're certified in that.
I'm certified in business continuity. So just to mention that.
Okay. So Josue so you're certified in that, and can you talk a little bit more, Josue, about your certifications and your background also? Later on, you don't have to do it now, but do bring that up so people also understand your background in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Well, preparing for the business continuity is planned for pandemic, which is a specific event, as we mentioned. It's not the same to prepare for general business continuity because it has a lot of different things that you have to cover. As was talking to Hector yesterday, this is one of the things that when you prepare your company for business continuity, in general terms, obviously all the time people focus on systems and or facilities. So I cannot enter the building. Where do I work? I move to another building or other facility. Or the system are down. We must have replication of data and all that. This is very important for the business. But sometimes when pandemic things happen, events happen, is when people, said, hey, if the people is not there, I can have the systems up and running, but the people is who works in the company. So this is the most important part, the human being. So this pandemic plan or the preparation for a pandemic plan focuses on that. And it's something that even if there is no pandemic, we must practice it. Okay. In general terms, we should become familiar with all the definitions surrounding the consequences of a pandemic, which we mentioned some of them, but we have to study more deep with formal sources. Outline a starting position in the organization and assess the risk. So it's not the same for a maybe manufacturing company, for a bank, for a hospital, for healthcare institution, but it's a health plan. It's very different how they work and how are the exposures for that. So we must understand ourselves, our risk in the corporation, and our current mitigation strategies, and to add those additional details.
And just to put this in perspective, Josue, what you're presenting here is from that previous slide that you have about the Business Continuity Association. This is kind of like what you're right now explaining is a framework where businesses can use a framework to better prepare for these type of pandemics.
Those are, business continuity is something that you must sit down and think in the what if process. What if this happened? What if that happened? And try to understand who am I in terms of the company. My corporation is ready for what? And that is special steps in that specific topic for pandemic, but there are specific steps for that. So yes, it's a framework. You use almost the same framework, but you adjust the things internally to what you are going to address and to mitigate.
Okay, so and also that Optimus works with both large businesses in Florida and the Caribbean, and we also work with small, medium businesses in the same region. And a lot of times, I get the concern from clients, and I'm also a business owner, right? So
me too.
And when I start seeing these frameworks and methodologies, I get concerned and overwhelmed. Can we assume, do these methodologies apply to big businesses and small businesses? In other words, Josue, can these be right size for small business, right? So a company that has 100 people, 150, 75 people, can we right size this?
Yes.
And then right size this to an organization that has 700 employees or 1,000 employees?
Of course, and we must do that because as you mentioned, it's not the same. The companies are not the same in all aspects, and not all applies to them.
Yeah.
In terms of a regulated company, what applies to them in the regulations, for example, is that they must have a strategy. But the strategy is aligned to what they are specifically.
Okay.
For example, a bank, which is very complex, a lot of people, regional offices, or a hospital, which is maybe multiple hospitals, have different needs and different risks. So company that sells bicycles with 5 employees, you adapt that very, very specific to what they need to know, because you're not implementing a big, huge framework for something that is not needed, if it is not needed. So yes, the frameworks are guidance, understanding, and let you know how to think about the topic, but you adjust them exactly for what the client, the company need. So yes, you can put them in perspective and prepare them specifically for what they are.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, some other things, the critical parts of the organization is not the same. I am giving you an example. What is more, the critical processes and the less critical processes to be defined if something happened of a pandemic event, who runs those critical processes just to make sure that the business is on a continuity basis or continue their operations. To verify the procedures, to build the plan elements, we're going to talk about that, and to exercise the plan. This is something that should be embedded in the corporate contingency plan procedures. So practice that type of scenarios and events. But we must get organized. We're talking about that, but we have to or put an order of that within the companies.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you know, so right now you're going from a macro and you're starting to get a little bit into more practice what organizations need to start doing, right? And this is a big organization or a small organization?
Yeah, they have to organize.
Yeah.
And they have to, even if they're small or big, they have to put all their strategy or the functions and all that in place. For example, big companies, some of the clients I have big committees, risk management committees, security committees, and all that. And obviously, they are few people of the company with key stakeholders and decision-making people who understand all that and put in place the rules of how it's going to work within the company.
Yeah, and I think you told me that you right now for one of the biggest health insurance companies providers in the whole Caribbean, you actually belong in one of their councils, right?
Yeah.
And I know you just said that the councils are right size. In a smaller business, you may have a couple of people in a council, right? And the bigger the business, can you give an example of, without saying your customer's name, a little bit how they're structured and how frequently you're communicating right now in coronavirus?
And let me put it this way. Companies like that, because have a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, areas in the country, regional offices, processes outside vendors, supporting people that are outside. In this topic of pandemic event is meeting like every day, and let me explain that. It's a constant communication process within different channels, the corporate chats or corporate tools that for managing a project like that, this is like a project, and in this moment in time with the pandemic is spreading the word and there are no vaccines and there's nothing, it's like a topic for every day. And there are obviously like workshops, like meetings to define things, to write and implement things, the procedures, policies, and all that happens in that meetings. So it's the same. My clients and all, I know I have some other friends that work with this also are doing the same. So
okay.
The organization leadership support. Obviously, if top management is not engaged, it's difficult to embrace that in the company. Tools to track the project, the communications. I mentioned internal corporate chats or tools that you can provide information and share information.
And in internal chats, right? I know, people are thinking, I have to have Teams or Microsoft Teams or whatever, but it's something as simple as creating a Skype group, right? So it could be something, for a small organization.
Let me, I'm going to say this, and I'm not announcing nothing here, but there are tools within all the licensing that companies buy that are for that. So they use the same corporate.
Okay.
Josue, like for instance, in reference to the Trinidad culture where you must be in an office to work, how is the documentation or how is the leadership plan? how can you recommend any documentation which can be supplied to the leadership team to have this plan sorted out, where they can use tools for communications, they can have a plan for work from home or something like that? Is there any materials available for that?
Your question, Vishal, is in the case of Trinidad, obviously where you're based, and we also have a lot of customers and we have people there. The culture there is a little bit different. Puerto Rico, we do work in the office, but we also work from home, and Florida too. But in Trinidad, you're saying it's a culture where predominantly people work from the office.
That's right.
People are not that used, and we're not going to say it's TSTT. We're not going to say it's Flow or Digicel's fault in their communications, right? We're not going to bring that up, but a little Caribbean joke here. But so your concern or your question is more around a culture where everybody works on an office. They're not used to working remote, and your question is, should organizations start getting prepared, or what should they do?
Well, and thank you both for the question. The real thing is, considering this pandemic or epidemic or pandemic event, is that no matter if they are in the office and they meet in the office and discuss, it's okay. But we recommend that they have other channels of communication, because sometimes things, for example, if the news announce at 10 p.m. in the night that there is coronavirus in that place, we must communicate. We must contact each other. We must have a tool for activate some plans. So that's why I mentioned that those tools are very good for being in constant communication, because the alert is in red, is high risk. So you have to understand that you use all those strategies based on what is really happening within the epidemic field right now.
Okay.
And you try to prepare management and the teams and people for be aware of knowing everything every time. That's basically what because we recommend that.
And with all these earthquakes and hurricanes, I know that
we have here in Puerto Rico a lot of
Puerto Rico and the
Caribbean.
Eastern Caribbean, the Leeward Islands, and I mean, and I was in Jamaica and I got that big earthquake, and our friends in Cayman too. So I know that in the Caribbean, a lot of the Caribbean, let's say we're a little bit, we already have, or we should have already protocols. Something happens, call this number, or there's going to be a radio broadcast, or WhatsApp, or for example, if somebody has Teams or Skype or Jammer, so all of that, or even our corporate Facebook page. So it's about using that. But I think also Vishal is asking, and you gave the example, tonight at 10 p.m., it was announced that in Digicel's main offices in Jamaica, somebody had coronavirus. They'll come into work from home. I think Vishal's asking, should there be a plan where people can connect from home on a PC?
And you're going to see that later in the presentation.
Was that your question, Vishal?
Yeah, sorry to rush you, Josue. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, I'm fine. Thank you. I like questions.
This is unscripted, brother. So I'm sitting right now by Josue, and we're going through this.
This is something that I discuss with people every day. It's a normal conversation.
And Josue, you just used the 10 p.m. example, but right a couple of minutes before the call, didn't you get an emergency alert? And since you're in that Security Council on your phone, something about Guatemala?
Yes, sir. Guatemala right now, let me share with you the information right now in reading. Just declared, they said calamity, declaration, which is almost like pandemic.
Yeah, local pandemic.
Because of the risk of coronavirus. Florida, a few days ago, just the government in Florida, USA, declared declared an emergency state. So, and there are like 3 cases right now. But the problem with that specific pandemic, as we read in the official sites, is the amount, the time it spread is very short. So it's very high risk. So basically, it's that. Yeah. Yes. Recent critical functions, I just mentioned that. Just if you have already a business impact assessment in your company, considering this is more like for middle big companies, a business impact assessment. So be sure that all the, like I mentioned later, all the critical functions and all that are in place there and are covered. The management team can read about that and say those are the critical topics that I have to address within the event, and examine obviously all the processes that or procedures that you have. This is a general, very general. Establish initiatives, specific initiatives. We just in the conversation we just talked about a few of them. Specific options to consider that are viable for the organization. Not all the organization can maybe cover their strategy in the same way, because not all organization maybe have the same problem. Only, although it's a pandemic or an epidemic event, some of them are like right now in Puerto Rico, which is no formal case. Everyone is preparing and just that. But if the company enters in a big in a more deep issue, so you should have thought about what things we're going to do for that and what equipment and all that. We're going to see that later, but it's not the same for everyone. So it's the same topic. The address, how to address is based on what is happening. You know what happened with one of the clients? Change the way some areas are addressing this and change a little bit the responsibility of the people,
Okay.
of the management, because there are people that have in healthcare, for example, there is people that know better what is a pandemic, what is a virus, and all that deep in topics, which I'm not a doctor, and they just address those people to say, hey, you are going now in that moment to have an additional small responsibility to put time in these topics and help us.
Okay.
It's very important if you can reach people inside your company.
So we're going through this. I'm also a business owner, so I'm putting my perspective on the side of our customers or myself. So you said there's a framework, so there's already a methodology with documents and steps that out there that people can follow, right? And from what I'm getting up to now, and I'm doing a quick summary, Josue, because this is new for me, and I think it's new for a lot of people. In the past, we just have dealt with hurricanes and earthquakes, which basically hurricanes, you have a couple of days to prepare. Earthquakes, you have no days. This pandemic thing, for me, being a Caribbean, Florida person, it's more like something imminent is approaching me, right? And it's slowly coming towards me, and this is how I feel, right? Yes. So for me right now, as we're going through this, my first takeaway is, and I don't have it in Optimus right now, I should set up a little committee, 2 or 3 people, and and the first step is setting up the committee before doing anything else, right? And then from there are resources, there's documentation, there's methodologies, and that you adjust that we just take that and adjust it. Okay, so the first step is really coming inside and saying who's going to be in the committee. And then from there are resources out there to do this. Okay.
Yes. Well, we mentioned regarding that, but the second thing that you're saying right now, after that committee and all the meetings, all that, you consolidate everything in your strategy, which is this slide just said that we talk everything. We have the news, we follow the CDC or the other entity, the government. We have people inside maybe or consultant that can help with this. Everything you just put it consolidated in one place and begin the process of preparing and engage in the steps needed. Are like stage, the stage needed if something else is happening. For example, We have nothing in Puerto Rico right now formally announced by the government. So we prepare this type of meeting. My clients are preparing. The clients are preparing their documentation, the steps to be. But today or tomorrow announce that is another stage, is another process. So
Okay, so, and, so there's, I see the word robust pandemic plan, and I'm already thinking, oh my God, I, a small business owner, have to sit down and I'm busy and write a 100-page document. So when you talk
No.
about a robust, it could be something as simple as
a good guidance, a good guidance,
good guide.
to
A
decide
couple-
to make decisions and on a timely manner.
okay, so that's creating the committee, empowering the committee,
Yes.
and then doing this plan. I assume the plan could be as simple as on a PowerPoint or a Word document. And there's already templates out there. You can, or your firm provides those templates
Yes.
too.
Yes.
So okay. So it doesn't mean that, oh my God, I have to spend 2 months doing
you
this.
You don't have to buy a
Okay.
software and analytics and all that.
Okay.
It's for this type of thing, the pandemic thing is
Yeah.
very.
Yeah, because I'm
Yeah. And remember, pandemics are from viruses. Obviously, H1N1, influenza, this coronavirus, they're viruses. So at least in my early 47 life,
yeah.
the only thing I heard regarding those topics 20 years ago is almost the same that we're doing today. When H1N1 in 2009, I was serving some banks with that strategy, and it's in general terms almost the same. Be with good hygiene, have procedures, have proper procedures, and the plans are not like this 40-page thing. It's like small thing that the committee can decide and give instructions. It's like that.
Yeah. So, and again, I know in the Caribbean, and I mentioned it before, where, now earthquakes, but we're used to hurricanes, where we have, and we do a little bit of planning and we have a little bit of contingency, but it's always, it's going to hit. I don't know how it's going to hit. And then I'll do a little bit of planning, but I'll never know. And then I'll just recuperate. And in this case, this is different what we're used to in Florida and the Caribbean, because we know it's coming slowly, right?
And it's a health issue.
And it's a health issue.
It's a health issue.
It's not a couple of people are gonna die, or
it's a flood. It's not a flood.
It's not a flood. A building is not gonna fall. This is more health, and not only impacts the organization, but it impacts our family.
Everyone.
So so we my point is, we're in the Caribbean, we're more used to this ad hoc planning due to the nature of this act of God, right? So let's call it act of God. Doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Christian or
it's a natural thing.
It's a natural thing. But in this case, we do have more time to plan, and it's going to be different than just recuperating, right?
Yes.
Yes.
For us. Imagine is this began in here, like China. There were no plans.
There were okay.
There were no plans. That's why those things you have to imagine it, place it in a document, discuss it, even if there's no pandemic, just to practice for that.
Okay,
it's important. Important. Anticipate how you will be operating with a small number of employees and implement policies for that, which is basically they must be in place and everyone should know it. I mentioned the critical staff, the reassignments, who is backup. If I am one guy doing that thing in the operations, I have a backup guy, a backup person to cover me. I'm ill, he's not ill, or she's not ill, he or she can cover me. It's important. Or reassignment for the staff. A policy regarding leaving, traveling, came back from a travel and enter in the office again. You should monitor that. And it's a case-by-case thing, because not because a person is sneezing or something like that have the virus. So you have to treat the process of evaluating what is happening in your corporation case by case. Um, the recommendations right now is that if a person travels from a high risk country and came back, stay at home, and the policies and procedures in the company should cover that in terms of how to manage it. I'm not saying what to do exactly because every company has to decide what to do, but in terms of paying additional salaries or something like that, or covering vacations or that, all that. But the recommendation in general terms for those countries is to you came back from Italy and you're not going to the office.
Yeah.
The companies are saying that. I have a friend that went to a haircut, and the guy from the haircut place said, "Hey, you're sneezing and all that. You must be out of here."
Well, you know, that was me. So,
Yeah.
true story. The people who know me that I travel a lot. So I just came from 5 cities in the U.S. and the Caribbean, non-high risk areas. 2.5 weeks of continuous travel, but I did pass through Miami, and I came in and I found my daughter with a cold, and she gave me the cold. But I went to the barber shop 2 days ago, and the barber kicked me out because I was sniffling and sneezing. Because he also knows that I travel a lot. So his first thing is Hector travels. He walked over to me. He says, "Hector, we like you, but you need to leave." So my barber kicked me out. So that's definitely a true story, Josue.
And this is important because you are seeing the mindset of the people right now. It is something that we in Puerto Rico, we have nothing formally in our case right now, thank God. And people is monitoring also this, everyone, and saying, "Hey, I don't want you to pass me that call," or something like that. So the mindset changes. So it's the same in corporations. The mindset have to change and to work around that. Obviously, corporations are served by other entities like us, Optimus Strategico. So you have to see inside your company, but also your interdependencies, which are vendors, providers, consultants, everyone. And you have to have policies regarding how to address that. Social distancing, for example, hygiene practices, is something that must be in place. In hygiene, there's an etiquette for that, which is you cover your mouth when coughing or sneezing, obviously with paper or your elbow or something like that, just to make sure that your hands are not wet with the sneeze. You can post hand wash instructions. You know that hand sanitizer is important, but hand wash soap is one of the things that we must use every time. Clean the hands. There's just no direct skin. There are policies people are implementing, and the governments are recommending, hey, no kisses, no hugs, no nothing. It's very separated.
Yeah, and we in the Caribbean, we love.
We are like that. We are like that, but it's a real thing. They recommend waving, smiling, every other kind of. Now maybe you can have, if your family, you put a kiss in the WhatsApp and then send it.
Yeah.
And stay at home if you're ill, obviously. And there are recommendations if you stay at home not to go out to the hospital or to the emergency room if not needed. And just call the doctor and try to cover your sickness remotely the better you can. Obviously, you have to buy medicine, but they are recommended that people is aware of that.
So one thing is and again, this social media is good because I remember SARS, and Josue, you were also involved in SARS. I know with contingency planning, you told me. I remember managing a business with 100 employees I used to own before, and throughout, we had offices, Canada, Caribbean, Colombia, Chile, Costa Rica, and I remember SARS very, very, very clearly, Josue. But back then we didn't have the amount of real-time information, and a lot of it real that wasn't being fed to us, and a lot of it unreal. So
there is a word for that.
Yeah.
You know
Which one?
there's a word for the social media miscommunication or
Fake news.
No, like that's what
That's Trump. That's Trump.
No. I'm not talking about that. But there is a word that it said infodemic.
Infodemic.
Someone of your guys,
I sent it to you.
You sent it to me, yeah.
Infodemic.
Infodemic, which is the pandemic of information.
Of bad information.
Of bad information.
So earlier I told everybody what Apple is doing. Be careful when you download apps that give you real life numbers. At the beginning, of those of you who weren't at the beginning, Josue did show the CDC and the Johns Hopkins websites where you can read, and the WHO, World Health Organization, where you can get the real time and the real warnings and the different levels and the amount of people. So stick to that. Obviously, you can use apps, but for example, we did have I follow Tito's Vodka on social media, and somebody wrote how to do a hand sanitizer using Tito's Vodka. And I think Tito's Vodka did the social responsible thing. They had to get on their social media sites, and they had to write in there saying, even though if people do this, they'll sell more vodka. They had to write in there and say, don't do this because Tito's Vodka has 40% alcohol. You really need 60% or more in a hand sanitizer, right? So infodemic, right? So be very careful. This is happening on a real-time basis.
Yeah, I can continue. Social distancing, we mentioned that already. If your people in your work can work remotely, and this topic was a big discussion with one of my clients, because first, not everyone can work remotely, and it depends of the work they do. But if you have the opportunity to do that for those who are ill or and this specifically work remotely and all the other things, we are thinking coronavirus, but applies to every other situation. Well, your policies should cover that. Your policies, in terms of policy, internal policy, no insurance. Your policies should cover that, and you have to manage it accordingly based on your own business structure. We have a lot of facilities to work remotely, but not for everyone, obviously. Consultants do that, maybe people that only do things with analysis and connect to the system to do that, but there are other physical things that and attention to clients that have to be face-to-face. For that, obviously, if you have face-to-face interactions, you must consider barriers within a face-to-face interaction. If you have regional office, I'm just doing examples, a regional office, and you must, clients visit you, but well, you must have some distance and some barrier, like glass and acrylic or something like that, just to make sure that there is no pass. If it is ill, the person is ill or is sneezing, coughing, or all that, those you minimize the risk of having being sick, of being sick. Supplies. Those are things that in the plans are contemplated and are obviously part of the inventory that a company must see, which is soap, hand sanitizer, towels, all of the things that help cleaning the surfaces, maintain a better environment must be considered. And if there is no budget for that, maybe within the committee, there are opportunities to create that budget and to maintain that budget in an ongoing basis. Because what happened with this is that all that expenses, new expenses, increases.
Yeah.
So
Jose, is this something that organizations can keep running all year round and not just for this, and they should include this in their budget and their proposals and everything at the end of the year?
Yeah, it is recommended because this is one of the things that I mentioned earlier is part of a more bigger strategy, which is a business continuity program. So considering the real things that are happening in the world and happening in the countries and near us, this is something that companies, the recommendation obviously, and the best practice is that have an ongoing budget for business continuity covering all that topics.
Okay. And two things with that. One of our customers, they're a manufacturer of consumer packaged goods, deodorants, detergents, etc. And they also do, let's say, over-the-counter health products like, stuff like Bengay, etc. On, including alcohol and hand sanitizer. On Tuesday, by the way, they kicked me out of their offices too. Not only the barber, but they also did too. But on Tuesday, when I passed by, the CEO of the company told me that they had their day of most sales in their 40-year company history, and that was and this is not a high season month for them. My point to this is if you're an organization, you're here today, you should be placing some orders for hand sanitizer, soap, or whatever, and just make sure that within your organization, you, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but today or yesterday, you should already have, because suppliers are running out of hand sanitizer, they're running out of soap, etc. So at least on an organizational basis, make sure that you have enough stock.
Yeah. Well, you're mentioned right now that, and there is another thing that people is like, remember that this create hysteria, so we have to manage that.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of people selling online all that, the masks for the face,
Yeah.
and there is like, I don't know how many advertisement I received regarding that. What the organizations and the clinical people express about that is the mask is for the ill, for the person that have the problem.
Not the person
Not the
protecting.
person protecting.
It's a
Because
person who has a problem.
you have to protect yourself regarding cleaning and all
Okay.
that, but the person that have, we must protect that person just to be sure that it's not spreading the thing.
Okay.
So
It's not about catching it, it's about spreading.
yeah, and yes, because he can cough and it may put in the table and have it in
The table and
the
everywhere.
table. All right.
Okay.
You have to clean all that always.
Okay.
But
So you should tell an employee if they come in and they have a cold or something like that, just in case, if you get sick, as a company policy, you should have the mask on if you're sick,
Well,
right?
companies are moving through that and obviously reading the recommendation of all those entities. And yes, and companies must have maybe an inventory for that, just to be sure that his or her, the employee is obviously, you can help them with covering that.
Yeah.
So, but it's not like buying 1,000 things for everyone. No.
Okay.
1,000 masks for
Okay.
everyone.
So a company should have masks just to make it available to employees.
It
who
is
cough, yeah,
recommended just to use it specifically for that.
for the sick people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also have read from Harvard and I've read from different reputable news outlets that on a prevention basis where you're not sick, you want to prevent getting sick, that the masks are good for spit, but not when you touch something. Like
if
you were
if
saying,
you touch your eyes or
you're still gonna get it.
Yeah, you have to maintain yourself clean, your hands, not touching your face. No, that's the recommended.
Yeah, and the masks don't protect really against airborne.
And there are
Only spit, right? So
airborne is very small.
So basically what you're saying and adding that to the other recommendations that are coming out there from reputable, non-infodemic sources or
Yes.
fake news
Yes.
is masks are for people who are sick. So when they cough or whatever, they're not sending the
Sending
spit
the
out
spit
there
out there,
to
yeah.
a table,
Yeah.
to a doorknob,
doorknob,
to whatever.
and you have
So,
to maintain those things
Yeah.
clean every time.
So if you're a person who are trying to prevent that, really what they're saying is you put a mask on, it's gonna do very, very, very little.
Yeah. And there are masks, and there are masks.
Okay.
Not all are the same.
Yeah,
And there is a site, I don't have it here, but I can send it just to
Yeah.
make sure.
N95, right? I
And
think?
N95, they said about N95, but they have like a 3 different codes, additional
Okay.
codes. There is a little bit complex, but yes, they
Okay.
said N95.
Yeah, so what you're saying is what I also read is N95 are the best masks out there. N as in Nancy, 95, it means it protects 95% of airborne, not the other 5%. And then the regular surgeon's mask and painter's mask that you're seeing out there, airborne, really, it's just spit.
Just pass through.
Yeah. And where we really grab it, it's not that somebody spits in your face. Again, it's somebody who's sick, coughs on a table or a doorknob, or
You don't ever know who touched.
Yeah.
Who
touched what?
Touched what? Exactly. As a summary, in general terms, because this is a very general.
Yeah, and by the way, Josue, I'll remind everybody at the end, we'll open it up for questions.
Yes.
So keep on writing your questions, audience, and then at the end, we'll open up the chats. We can open up the audio because it'll be unmanageable, but we'll open up the chats and then we'll ask the questions and provide answers. So there will be a quality control. The other thing, Josue certification for this is non-IT. It's really on a process, best practice, SOP process type of thing. So again, this is not IT only. This is really SOP.
Yes. In summary, you can prepare your plan considering 3 main processes, which is the pre-pandemic or preparedness, which is right now what is happening here in Puerto Rico. People are preparing. During the pandemic, obviously, it's here, what we're going to do, what policies we activate and all that. And after the pandemic, once the governments and entities said, hey, there is no pandemic, there is a vaccine, everyone is now in the process of getting immunization and all that, well, you have to monitor constantly that and work around those new events, which is the recovery phase. Basically, there are 3, if you put all your strategy within those 3 elements, you can manage it in a better way.
Yeah, and I think everybody right now, they're just talking about the pre and the during. The recovery, there's not a lot of people talking about recovery yet.
You can use something like that. It's very simple. The important is what you put inside this. At this table, hopefully everyone is seeing. It's like a matrix. You have all your. We use like white, which is planning. Like we are planning for that. There's no specific scenario happening, and what you're doing with the plan, which is the policy, the meetings with the committee, and all the preparedness. Then yellow, although it's no scenarios, is increased. In the world, the pandemic is in China, now it's in Italy, now it's moving around us. And then when it's like now, that it's not over us, but it's very near us. So it's like a code red. If happen for us, we activate all those new protocols. Is in our region, is in our region or out of our region, we must put a red code. This is a recommendation, obviously.
Okay.
A red code, hey, it's near us. If someone came in, so we activate that protocol.
Okay.
It's a guidance. This table is very useful for management, just to make sure that it's more easy to administer that.
Yeah, and I know we have health and security officers, managers of corporations listening to this. I know we have CEOs, CFOs today also on the other line. They're getting a lot of questions. Are you going to discuss in this presentation? If not, anything about communicating to employees, or that's for later discussion?
Well, sorry, I jumped. Well, not specific protocols. I'm not presenting here specific things because,
Okay.
because as I mentioned earlier, there are some general things that apply for everyone, but there are some things that we have to understand the entity and what they do to do that. But in general terms, and I think we just mentioned a lot of things that they can use, all your companies can use, which is to meet those key players, to understand what is happening around us, to put in place some guidance. There are guidance like this publicly also. You must use it also, because they are official, and to prepare and discuss what we're going to do if someone came ill here, and because for pandemic it's like that. It's like this small amount of things, but very strong, that we have to cover. Uh, Hygiene, cleaning, strategy for continuing our business, remotely or not remotely, employees at home or not at home, who travels, who didn't travel, and all that. This all around the big strategy and around the policies that you have or the regulations that you have also.
Okay, perfect. And Josue, can you also talk a little bit about who you are, strategical? Where is this presentation? Where are you coming from?
Well,
and then we'll open it up for questions.
Let me do it very fast. Strategic is a firm that really opens in 2017, but myself, I have like 22 years doing this in different corporations. I came from two different firms, and I used to be 10 years in the banking doing risk management in terms of business continuity and internal audit, IT audit. So my specific background is from where I learned a lot of those topics, because the regulation in banking and all those entities is very, very strong. So you have to put in place all those strategies.
Okay.
Strategico, we created Strategico in 2017. We are a group of people more experienced. We're small, but we are more experienced people in different topics. Basically, we like to deliver the strategy to the companies just to make sure that have one strong result and they can continue with what we implemented with them.
Okay.
So we are strong in our beliefs and values. This is very important because we serve people and companies are built on people. So we like to maintain a very high integrity, understanding, relations with all them. And in general terms, this topic is very interesting, but you're seeing right now change and project management. Change management is not IT change management. No? It's not technological change management. Change management is cultural change and process changes. And we are talking right now implementing a new procedure and pandemic preparedness or plan, which changes all the mindset and all. It obviously take off time to redirect our efforts to a new thing. So it's part of the change management process. And we do that not only for this pandemic thing, we do that in terms of evaluating processes and improving and changing. Obviously, if the company needs more efficiency and all that.
Okay.
Advisory as CIO, so we work a lot with IT, risk management, which cover everything from IT audits and business continuity and all those topics. Policies, procedures, specific disaster recovery and business continuity. We help management decide what to do with their, for example, DR strategy, which is disaster recovery for systems, how to prepare for that and how to plan for that. I do not sell software, neither nothing. We are just consultants that help with those strategies just to be implemented.
Okay, perfect, Josue. So let's start opening this up for questions. I think, yeah, if you go here to the QC. So will the slide be available to the attendees? Yes, they will. So we're recording this. Our education team is going to take the recording from today. They have to go through a process. Our recording will be available, and also the PowerPoint. So that'll be available on Monday.
In a PDF.
In a PDF, it'll be available. So you'll get the recording, and separately, you can also get a copy of this PowerPoint on a PDF format. Aside from that, what you need to do is you need to email operations at optimus.guru, but also at the end of today, you'll receive an email from Alejandra, and Alejandra will also send you an email with her contact information where you can request both a recording of the webinar and a copy of the PowerPoint. Somebody also wrote in here as a question, and again, you can ask more questions through the chat. We won't say who's asking the question, so no question is a let's say less educated questions, or all questions are good, and we won't give the name of the person doing the question. But we do have a colleague who wrote in here, infodemic, it means an excess of information concerning a problem such that the solution is made more difficult. So over information, disinformation and fake news feed into that. So just again, the original sources are in there. Any other questions? Again, there is a chat in the panel, and you can just write within the chat. Okay.
Let me put this.
Okay, so we're getting a whole bunch of questions here. 1 second. We're going through the questions. Are there any pre-made materials available to sensitize the staff, Josue?
Well, because we recommend, what we recommend is that use the original official sources, like the CDC in terms of Puerto Rico and USA. There are a lot of material, free material up there that you can download in PDF form that serve as guidance for all that. It's general information, but it's very, very useful. Just to, for example, I mentioned in some of the slides to put posters or something like that to aware people of washing hands and all that. There are a lot of PDF up there that they can download. You can download. Yes, there's availability of that. I can read the links for that and send it to you, Hector, and just to provide for them.
Okay. The other question is, what is the lifespan of the virus in the air and the surface? One thing, remember, we're not doctors. This is changing. Yesterday, it came out that there's actually 2 strains of the coronavirus. One less aggressive, that people think it may be an allergy or just a quick sniffle. And then the more aggressive one, which is taking the deaths. The other thing that just came out was that it's primarily hitting people over the ages of 30. So again, what this is mean is
it changes every day.
This is changing every day.
Yes.
So when there's a question, what's the lifespan? Now there's 2 versions of the coronavirus. That means that everybody around the world, US, China, everybody's working
They're
on,
analyzing it.
yeah, they're analyzing it right now. They're also working for a cure. They're working for, ¿cómo se llama la inyección?
Yeah.
They're also working on they're also working on, and by the way, we hit pause share. We were putting out we were projecting the question. Sorry, we just paused it, so you can keep on asking questions confidentially. Sorry about that. So yeah, so I mean, it depends on the strain. You know, they're working on shots right now, and you know that's going to be changing on a daily basis. And I was saying it's primarily affecting people over the age of 30. Most deaths are people over the age of 70. And then the second group is people over the age of 60. So as of yesterday, they're saying that, you know, the younger generations is actually the virus is skipping them. So, you know, I, for example, I had mentioned I had not seen my my nephews and my godson in the last month because of me traveling and not wanting to pose any risk. Now, you know, I'm feeling a little bit better. You know, possibly I want to see them now. But I'm most concerned with my parents at this point. So, you know, in my case, because I travel a lot, I haven't gone, you know, I've just been to Jamaica, to Cayman, you know, to Puerto Rico, to different islands and Fort Lauderdale. You know, I should be okay, but you know, when I'm sitting on an American Airlines plane, I did sit by some Italians before it was announced, right? So yeah, there, you know, in my case, I consider myself a little bit higher risk than somebody else. So.